Today, we turn this into a cabinet.
We have most of the pieces cut for the lower cabinet, so we're going to start putting that together.
Made a real bonehead move on this. You see right here, this overhangs by 3/4 because we didn't account for this back wall being 3/4 of an inch thick. So we just have to rip this down 3/4 of an inch. And then we'll be able to continue. Now that we have the cabinet built, we're having to notch out of the back to compensate for this little jut out right here. So we'll just be cutting this shape out right here on the back of the cabinet. And then hopefully it'll sit flush up against the wall after that.
We're test fitting the oven and it actually fit on the first try. Countertop will go over it so it's super flush. It's awesome. We have the kitchen cabinet in place and have measured the sink, the center of the sink, to get where the drain placement is, and Ben is now drilling the pilot hole for the drain for the sink. You can see the pilot hole right there. We're going to use a 2-inch hole cutter to make the drain hole for the PVC. We've been working on this kitchen cabinet for a while. We've been planning and thinking about all the holes that need to go in there so we can have all that cut, painted, and mounted. There's holes for electrical, there's holes for the PVC, there's holes for the water. There's tons of holes in this thing, but we're making progress, so that's good. Our PEX tubing holes, gas line holes, power holes, more power holes, the electrical switch hole, PVC, and PEX again down there.
All the holes. We're just putting the finishing touches on the cabinet system so we can go ahead and like paint everything and actually install it into the van. So right now we've just been working on drilling holes for water lines and doing some of the drawer slides. Use the soft touch system there so everything's nice and fluid. Jay forgot to run the electrical lines.
Yeah, it was me.
Thanks for tuning in to today's video. As always, it's time for our tips, tricks, mistakes, and cost. First things first, build your cabinets square. Make sure they're square from the bottom all the way up. The walls, any shelves you put in will save you so much hassle in the future as far as putting doors in, countertops, drawers, attaching other units of your van to the actual cabinet itself. Just make sure it's square. That is so important. Like, probably the most important tip that we have. We have the other cabinets unsquare, and it was a total disaster.
So another tip is to not cheap out on plywood. Get the good stuff. We bought some other, I guess the less expensive type of plywood for that, and it bubbled up. When you painted it, it bubbled up. It was just didn't cut as easily. The nicer the plywood, the easier your life will be when you're painting, and the visual aesthetics of it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I would highly recommend getting 3/4 inch hardwood plywood, whether it be maple or birch or anything like that. Like Jelaine said, we did buy some cheaper plywood at the time because prices were insane. It was like $80 for a sheet for it was the maple plywood at the time, and I was like, heck no, I'm not paying that. We'll get this other stuff that's like 60, but prices have since gone down significantly, and everything's back around 60 even for the maple hardwood. But as she said, it did bubble up, and don't get like cheap like pressure treated plywood or anything like that either. It's not going to be a good look. It's going to be rough, and anything else that's just cheaper, I don't know, definitely don't use particle board. It'll flake apart, anything like that. Even some people I've seen buy like pre-made cabinets from IKEA, and then they just don't withstand all the bumps and vibrations going down the road. So get something good and sturdy and build it to last. You won't regret it. As you saw in the video, we were putting drawer slides in before we actually had any drawers, and we were doing that because we actually put drawers in where the toe kicks will be going, and we went ahead and did the drawer slides because we wouldn't have access to the toe kicks. Well, we would have had access, we just couldn't get a drill in there to actually fasten the screws to the drawer slides. So we went ahead and did that beforehand, and then eventually attached drawers to those at a later date.
The mistake that we did, as you saw in the video, is we didn't measure properly for that bottom piece, and it stuck out 3/4 of an inch too far. So just make sure you're accounting for where you're placing all the pieces, and measure and measure and measure and continue to measure, then cut. Just so you're doesn't end up like, it was beneficial for us that, you know, we just had to cut that one spot, but if we would have cut it too short, then we would have had to have gone back to Lowe's to get more plywood, another 80 bucks, 60 bucks, and
that's generally what we do, is cut it too short. So luckily this time it was in our favor and wasn't really that big of a deal. But measure, measure, measure,
then cut. So the total cost of the plywood and some of the screws and the wood glue was a total of $120.32.
Thanks so much for joining us today. If you all have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. Consider subscribing for more van build content. We're Ben and Jelaine with Nomadic Visuals, and we'll see you all in the next one.